Hello everyone, Shinami here, finally making the second part of my UST tutorials. Sorry it took me so long. At first, it was because of an audio issue. Since this part's going to be focusing on pitch bending, I wanted to be able to record the system audio, what the computer plays, so you could hear UTAU and what I do as I go along. Unfortunately, my computer doesn't have that option. After researching, I found it's pretty much impossible. And even though my friend Cola has it, Cola is extremely antsy about people even seeing a nickname of hers on her computer. So when we tried to record one there, it pretty much was impossible. After that, it was kind of me being lazy, so sorry about that. But finally got around to it. So, hopefully before this part, you've seen part 1 of the tutorial series called The Basics, which just goes over most of the fundamentals of the program and UTAU itself. Remember, this series is not about how to make a UTAU or anything like that in the other sides of the basics. This is dealing with USTs themselves. Now, before we start doing UST work and pitchbend work, which towards the end somewhere I'm going to work on one for about 20 minutes from scratch, I need to go over a couple other basics with you, things I missed out on, other neat things about the program, and how I start off doing USTs. Let me go check my little outline. Alright, well, first off, I'm using UTAU 2.76 still. I prefer it to the 4.0 series. I don't know. I'm just kind of leery of it. I remember in its developmental stages, there were a lot of glitches and bugs. So, if there's anything in the slightest different with my program, that's probably why, if you're updated. Alright, next. Okay, when you do a UST, you should have a couple things activated. You should have this little tilde on, so you can see everything in detail. You should see in this corner around here, the letter M. If it isn't there, just click the block and it'll show up. What that does is when the M is activated, you can move multiple notes at the same time when you select them. If it's deactivated, even if you select a large area of notes, it'll only move the first one selected. Also, make sure you're on mode 2. People don't do mode 1 USTs anymore. I don't even know how to do it. Next. Alright. If your song is in 3/4 time, which is waltz beat, just go under view and you can hit 3/4 beat, which changes the measures into sets of 3. It doesn't happen all that often, but I actually know a couple songs where that'd be useful. Also, these two little functions up here, quantize and length, let me explain really briefly to you what they do. What quantize does is changes basically how notes are partitioned. It's very hard to explain. Like, see this ko right here? It's about 1 note length long. That, in a number value, is 480. Now, if I tried to have it, it'd automatically go to 240. If I have that, to 120. If I have that, to 60. That's because of the quantize value. I would never touch quantize ever in all of using UTAU. These note lengths are perfect. I should just never touch that. Length, however, is something actually I do touch on occasion because it can be useful for songs at different tempos. For songs at faster tempos, I would leave it at its default, which is L4 quarter note. But if you have a song that's a really slow tempo, somewhere below 100, let me show you what you can change to make it more useful. As you can see, when I press the Insert Rest button, it inserts a note that is 480 in length. However, if I go down here and select L8, 8th note, when I insert a rest, it'll be 240 in length, half of that. You can fiddle around with this, but when you have a long line of lyrics you're inserting, and you just want to insert them as a bass, making them a different length to suit the song better may reduce your workload when editing later. At least that's with how I make USTs. Up next. So, when some people make USTs, what they like to do is start off by making a MIDI. And then they export that MIDI into UTAU and edit off of that. Well, this is me personally. There are some people who do that, who get along with it fine. You know, that's their thing. But I think if you're starting, I think it's a really bad idea. This, remember, again, this is just me personally. People, when they do MIDIs, I don't think it's entirely accurate. Often I see people who made USTs based off of MIDI. There will be notes incorrect, there will be long note lengths, there will be so many incorrect things, and that's not even talking about how MIDIs can sometimes be the problem. UTAU is very picky with what kind of MIDIs it lets you import. If you don't have the exact kind they want, tempo can be screwed up, note lengths can be screwed up, it might not even open. So many things can go wrong. I think it's best to just do it by ear. That's harder at the beginning, harder to pick up. But in the end, I think it is much more worth it. The product will be 1,000 times more accurate. I just think it's worth it in the end to do it by hand and not by MIDI. Okay, some other random things. These are kind of pieced together in a random manner. This is a function I didn't actually know until my friend Cola told me about it. If you've ever wondered, under File there's this option called Append. I've never used it, but you might have use for it. What it can do is select a UST, and when you hit Open, it opens that UST at the end of your current UST. How might this be useful? You could maybe work on a UST in parts. Like, let's say there's this extremely long gap in the middle of the song. You don't want to have to time those rests and make the exact amount you need before the next singing part starts. Just go ahead and work on the next singing part as a separate UST, and then later figure out the rests. And then append on that UST into there. There could be uses for it. I don't use it because I was already way too used to my way of doing things before Cole showed me it. But it could have its good uses. Okay, next. Under this option called Tools, Note Default General, you can change some defaults to your UTAU program and therefore USTs you make automatically. So whenever you open the UTAU program, these will be there. You can change the intensity. Do you always want your notes to be 100? Do you always want them to be 80? What do you always want your modulation to be? You can change flags automatically, format filters, YGB, anything you want. If you always know, you will always do certain things, I'd do it. But I remember I took it all down because sometimes when I use different UTAUs, it doesn't help. So it's a matter of preference if you really want that easy to go shortcut. Oh yes. I might as well explain some of the various buttons up here. They're for the most part pretty obvious. This is a selector tool for selecting things and double clicking to edit notes and dragging stuff. This is a pen tool for drawing in notes. This is a lyric replace button, so you can type in stuff here, select notes, and then hit substitute lyrics. It does not do it for rests. It doesn't include rests, so don't worry about those. This is insert lyrics. Type some stuff here, press that button, and like I did earlier, they'll all appear as their own notes. This is insert rest, which inserts rest. Magnify, decrease. This skips you around the UST in obvious ways that you can see when you hover over. Mode 1, Mode 2. Trace is for when you have a Mode 1 UST. You switch to Mode 2 and you can hit Trace and it'll show the pitch bends for Mode 1 in gray for tracing. Render, I think that's just rendering. I'm not 100% sure. I've never touched this button, so that's why I'm so unsure. Play, pause, stop. MIDI buttons that I don't think I've ever seen anyone use, and I don't think anyone will ever use. I don't know. And then these are used for adjusting the UST to a voice bank, or the notes that you've laid down. I generally hit this ACPT, P2, P3, ACPT, but you can use P1, P4. Some people say they use crossfade optimization, this one here, but I never touch it. And this is if you need to set the note to default, which you do sometimes need to do. I've noticed that CV banks that have negative envelopes, if you're trying to make a VCV UST be sung by one such UTAU, you might have to hit this because it won't automatically give you those negative envelopes. Alright, next. When you're making a UST, and I apologize for how random these things are, they're just random little tidbits I'm throwing in here and there, you need to have a tempo. Now, some places, some sites, some programs, they have a tapping tool where you just tap your mouse along with the song. That is so highly inaccurate that you should never do it. I did it once, the tempo was off by like 10. It's not worth it. What I recommend is Googling around and finding this program called Mixmeister BPM Analyzer. Its original website's down now and you can't get it by the official website anymore, but it's spread around the internet and you can get it in loads of other places. It's a very handy tool where you just download the off vocal and the on vocal, put them in a folder, hit this little import button, find them, and I like to set stuff in their own little UST folders, and it will calculate the BPM. It has a warning though, if you started a UTAU thing, it'll register all those other stuff. It's highly accurate. It tells you this stuff immediately. It's very useful. It's only led me wrong once, and I have even no clue why that happened. But use it. Don't use a tapper. I'll go over pitchbends last, and then we'll move on to some, I'll go over note lengths last, and then we'll go over pitchbends and notes. Now this is a bit of math theory I want to explain real fast. It helped me when I suddenly noticed this to figure out how to make USTs easier on myself, so it might help other people. Okay, so when you look at UTAU, it's kind of like a music thing. There are these large, thick lines that indicate a measure. There are 4 lines in each. It's a 4x4 thing. Each single note, each single note, when you notice length, is 480. A half note is 240. You have 4 sets of 480 in one measure. Now, when you're doing notes, there will always be these multiplications of 60. The shortest note, 1/4 of this full bar, is 60. Half of this full, an eighth of the full bar is 60. Half is 120. A fourth is 120. I can't even speak. Half of it is 240. The full thing is 480. Some notes need 3/4, which is 360. It's a bit of a math thing. 2 notes is 960, I think it was. A note and a half is 720. It's always multiplication. If you stick within those constraints of the multiply by 60, if most of your notes stay within the 1 note length or half a note length, nearly all songs follow a structured pattern of how long notes are. And if your tempo's right, it should be very easy to place notes down just by having that in mind. A small side anecdote to that, though, is when you drag a note all the way back to its very beginning, it'll separate into a note that's much too small. And if you manage to right-click it and check its length, it is 15. That can screw up things a little bit because while other note lengths will make this stuff adjust, it's very complicated to explain, I think, rather than see for yourself. But once you do that 15, it can make stuff uneven. You always have to make sure that a note following your note before has 15 taken away or added to it, so it doesn't disturb the 60 cycle. But the 15 can be very useful. If you're at a slow tempo and there is a note that's like des or nak, where the vowel doesn't really follow, you just want that consonant in there. Sticking a 15 onto the end of a phrase is a very effective method of doing that in very slow tempo USTs, where anything more would make the vowel come in. It's something you really need to experience yourself and experiment with. I learned all of this by self-experimentation. But it's neat to know that it's there. Now last, I'm going to talk about something, note consistency. Songs are in keys. A song will generally follow the same note patterns that are present in the key for the whole song. I'm no music expert, but that's something pretty easy to figure out. So in a song, like even this, you can see there are certain notes it will be on and won't be on. It's always, we'll use these gray bars. And sometimes, this is just a self-little thing I know and do. It's kind of silly. If you want to know if the notes are right next to each other, just do like Jaws, go da-da. If the 2 notes you're listening to are like, You know they're right next to each other. But otherwise, there will always at least be one line between them. And you can quickly figure out what notes are very common to hear in the song, and you won't be guessing around too much with the notes. It's note consistency. You'll start picking it up as you play along with the song. And finally, pitch bends. I think this is much more of a thing that you have to look at, that you have to observe, and then do for yourself to understand. Pitch bends are complicated, but at the same time simple. They change the notes. That's all they do. They change how the note sounds, because the red line is where the pitch goes instead of just the basic bar of the plain note. But there are so many styles in how you can pitch bend stuff, what pitch bends do, if they'll sound different because in VCV the consonant has a space before it so it doesn't take as much effect. It's a lot of stuff to absorb. So I think that is something that you just need to watch and observe, download a bunch of USTs, look at it. I'm going to now begin working on a UST for 20 minutes. And hopefully you'll be able to observe my style from it. If you need any more things, download some of my USTs and look through them. It depends entirely on the song how the style's going to turn out. Partially. Like if I'm imitating more of a realistic singer, like in this random UST I have open, the pitch bends are going to be a lot crazier than if I was just imitating a very more bland Vocaloid song, where sure, I'll twist it up with my style, but I don't need to do too much crazy stuff to imitate a singer. So, I'll be back in a moment after I pause and change some settings and download the stuff required, and I'll start working on a UST for 20 minutes. Though when I do so, be warned, again, I couldn't get system audio recorded, so you're going to hear UTAU in the off vocal and myself if I talk or sing to myself to figure out things, so you can see how I do it, but it won't be very good sound quality. UTAU will sound muffled because it's coming from speakers in front of the microphone. Sorry. And at the end of it, I'll render and play and nicely edit in what the UST sounds like after 20 minutes of work. Okay, I'm back. Mic might sound a bit different because I had to change the mode so it'll pick up, hopefully, the speaker audio better. But oh well, gotta do what I gotta do. So, I've got lyrics pulled up that I searched for. If lyrics for your song that you're looking for are particularly difficult to find, I'd search on Piapro, I'd Google the Japanese name. There's loads of places lyrics can be found. Some are harder to find than others, though, of course. So now we just gotta find the tempo, and we can start our new UST. I've already downloaded the off vocal and on vocal into their own folder. So the tempo is 150. And I've already chosen a voice. Let's go select her. Where was she? Oh gosh, I just realized I haven't unzipped her yet. Give me a moment to do that. Hope this doesn't take too long. Had her voice for a bit, but then she updated it, so deleted the old one and forgot to unzip the new one. I really hope it's not big because of a bunch of .frc and FRT files or something. Always remember to delete those peripheral files before you upload a bank. It's really irritating if I download a bank and it's full of these files that I may not ever use. FRQs and WAVs are important, not the rest. Come on. My computer's very slow if you haven't noticed. Very, very, very slow. Now you get to look into the part of the UTAU process you never hoped you'd have to look into. Downloading really big voice banks, then extracting them. Though I'm all for big voice banks, if that means they have extra pitches and stuff. I'm just talking right now to fill up the silence. I feel awkward. Phew! Ugh. Sorry. Alright, now let's just reload. If you ever download new voice banks in the middle of the UTAU being open, just once you have their folders open, hit Voices, Reload Voice Bank, and it'll reload all the voice banks that you have. Though, of course, I have like 340, so it takes a couple moments for it to do that. Okay, there we go. Now let's go select her. Somewhere. There she is. I'm just going to use my basic flag setup that I use whenever I'm using a UTAU, but I generally edit it later and choose a different resampler based on what suits the voice better. So click here to enter your new tempo. Some people like to measure the rests out and make it match to the beginning of the off vocal. I don't do that anymore. I used to. So now I just stick in 4 rests, and I still have the length off. So I need to fix that. Since this is a faster tempo song, the quarter note default is a lot better. Now let's go look at the lyrics. I'm gonna be, well, from now on, just USTing. I forgot this thing has really nice pitch bends in the original, so I might go a little crazy. UTAU. Ramajidi Hiragana is a really good plugin. I suggest everyone get it. Let me adjust the volume so you guys can hear better. Sui. Suigo. Suigo. Iko. Suigo. Iko. Ma. No. Oma. 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 Male. So. ソナナムナム無限の空無限の空空ほらひよかげかげり吸い込まれ吸い込まれい込まれ Oh wow, that's tricky. 吸い込まれい込まれ空吸い込まれ空い込ま吸い込まれ空無限の空日は陰り
吸い込まれそうな無限の空吸い込まれ吸い込まれそうな無限吸い込まれそうな無限の空吸い込まれそうな無限の空日は陰り
This song uses a lot of 360s.
日は陰り日は陰り日は陰り日は陰り
I very frequently upload, well, bring in and render the UTAU version to compare against the actual song to make sure I have the timing right and the notes. You never know how wrong you can be.
吸い込まれそうな無限の空 日は陰り吸い込まれそうな無限の空日は陰り無限の空日は陰り日は陰り日は陰り
You know, I'm starting to think that this original song involved use of vocal shifter or V shifter or whatever that sounds like V shifter. If you notice what I did, I just put in a less than 100 value in the consonant velocity slot. What that does is it drags the consonant out really nicely sometimes. I noticed Miku's S was a lot longer than Haruko's, so I went ahead and slowed it down a little bit. Not a pitch bend a bit. Suikamane sona, suikamane sona. Suikamane sona. This is probably going to require actually pretty intensive pitch bending. Sorry for a poor choice in song. Suikamare. Male. Yeah, there's no way I can imitate this song 100% fully, I feel.
込まれそうな無限の空無限の空無限の空無限の空吸い込まれそうな無限の空あれそうな無限の空
You know, a thing you could almost do with this, since it's based off of vocal shifter pitchbends. There are programs out there that let you remove the off, like if you have the off vocal and the version with the singer, there's programs out there that let you remove the off vocal from it, and so you just have the singer vocals. And you could plug them into this handy dandy program called V-Shifter. I was using it a little bit ago to edit some dynamics, and even though it's a kind of difficult program to use, when you open stuff, it'll show you the pitch bends of things. So that could be very useful in something like this. Or you could, if you can sing, you could record yourself singing, which would probably help with this.
吸い込まれそうな無限の空
日を陰り日は陰り
影
陰り日は陰り
日は陰り
日は日はか陰り影り
日は陰り日は陰り
Sorry, Shinami has allergies.
吸い込まれそうな無限の空日は陰り陰り陰りえりえりえり陰り
Yeah, I don't work particularly fast. This is close to 20 minutes of UST work, how I do it. Let's render it and check it out.
吸い込まれそうな無限の空日は陰り吸い込まれそうな無限の空日は陰り
I'll probably add an ah breath later. Alright, that's about 20 minutes of UST work. I didn't get much done because this requires quite a bit of pitch bending actually. So what I'm going to do is now render nicely the sound and put it together and show you how this sounds now that I'm done. Since this didn't end up with much, I'll show you a couple other little UST bits. It playing as just the vocals sing. You've seen me put this together.
吸い込まれそうな無限の空日は陰り例えば光が消えて暗闇世界を覆ってしまうときは神様と手を取り合って約束したことを教えてくれた未来を手探り届ってみるんだ無限の宇宙へと果てなき航海を声を響かせて光を求めて少しの不安とかすかな気候が翼を羽ばたかせ世界が輝き出した
花道を薄く照らして寄せ木細工音を奏でたあでやかな上限の月雲に消えた傘もないのに朝が来てそれが春の霜解けのようにいてついた恋がいつか熱く流れるならば終わらない雨の中で抱きしめてあなたが答えを隠しているのなら
Alright, there we go. There was a few examples, though actually none of those USTs are out yet. If you notice the second one even, Cosmic Tones, I haven't even finished pitch bending the chorus. I do have a lot of USTs out already though, if you want to check those out. Well, I hope in the end this tutorial helped with some people. Pitch bending isn't really something I can show all the way. Sure, maybe seeing me do a couple things and move stuff around helped, but I think a lot of it comes from self-experimentation. Download USTs, observe styles, try it on your own. But always remember, there's always too much pitch bends and too little. On this UST, for example, these pitch bends would probably sound bad with certain UTAUs and on certain songs. It's just too much. It only sounds good because that's how the original is. While in Cosmic Tones, those may be good for such a more plain Vocaloid song that didn't have too much emotion in the first place, but it maybe wouldn't cut it on a more complicated song. It all depends on the song and the UTAUs you're using. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and remember, in part 3 I'll be going over harmonies, how to detect them, how to figure them out in as many ways as I could think of, even if it doesn't really help everyone. Because that's a big concern I always hear with people making USTs. I won't be able to figure out the harmonies. You will, you just need to train your ear for it a bit. Oh, and also before I forget, here's Cedra's Big UTAU guide. It has some things about the program that even I've forgotten, and it can be very handy. Some links are outdated though, but for the most part it's pretty good.